Hello, and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. And today we are going to be drawing Wolverine, and we're going to be talking about action poses and that type of thing. Specifically, we're doing Wolverine in an action pose, if that wasn't clear before. Hope it was. It'd be kind of embarrassing if it wasn't. Okay, so as per usual, I've gone and done the base sketch beforehand, and I've put in a little bit more detail this time than I normally do in my base sketches, because I was working from, if you've ever looked up just like drawing pose reference on Google Images, I was working from one of those because I couldn't find like proper normal stock photo reference that I would normally use. And so this is what I came up with, which is, it is based on, you see them on, if you just type in like dynamic pose references or action pose reference or stuff like this on Google Images, you get stuff like this. And so I just kind of looked at a few of them and then just kind of, while looking at the screen, kind of drew down some stuff for it. But I did put in a little bit more detailing than usual, and so an issue with using those drawing pose reference things, I'll just say it now, is that oftentimes you can get like kind of awkward styling mishmashing. So to kind of clarify what I mean by that, say for example the reference that you're looking at is more of an anime style, which is what the one that I was using was. So an issue which you might come across there is, say you have more of a realistic style and your reference is more of an animated style. You're going to need to do some work to try and adapt that. And I think I've kind of done an okay-ish job of it. It can be a bit of a pain, so I tend to avoid using them for the most part, because I tend to use real reference, because that way it's a little bit more, it fits a little bit more with the kind of slightly more realistic that I use. But I've kind of bumped him out a little bit, and so we'll get on with it now. But the specific suit that I was using, or that I'm going to be drawing of Wolverine here, is the brown suit. It's the one I like, the 80s and 90s brown suit, because that one looks cool. And that's like, I even have some like little reference open on the screen in front of me, like some Jim Lee art open of the suit, so that should be okay for the most part. But I'll get to it. Oh, a thing which I actually mentioned in the past about smiles is that, or smiles which does apply to like yelling faces and just angry faces, is that whenever you smile, your nose spreads out a little bit like that, and you get these little lines coming down from the sides of your nose, and so that's a lot more prominent, it's a lot more pronounced whenever you're angry, because whenever you're angry, your nose goes up a lot, like your nose itself like pushes up, the bridge scrunches. So that's something which we're not really able to portray much here because it's a mask, and so it's kind of covering that. But on in another circumstance, say if you no mask or anything like that, you'd be drawing like kind of these harsh little lines scrunching up around the eyes, and then the nostrils themselves being very kind of pronounced out, more so than you would normally, because you wouldn't normally really pronounce the nostrils themselves. You would pronounce the just the sides near it, and only a touch as well. And so you wouldn't really go too hard on some of the other stuff, but it's a case of where you would kind of maybe emphasize those little bits. And that also does, as I say, apply a little bit to some of the kind of the basic principles apply to yelling faces. And again, something which I'm not quite so concerned with here is making Wolverine look old, because Wolverine always kind of has like a gruff, harsh face, so it's kind of fine, I think, to make him look a little bit, maybe even a little old, maybe even a little kind of exaggerated in the face, because yeah, I feel like he almost kind of should look a little bit exaggerated in the face, and we'll be adding stubble and stuff later on, so it's something to just kind of remember, I guess. That doesn't look great. But yeah. A little thing which you can do to sometimes make a character maybe look a little bit more savage or something like that is that the kind of the drool line. It's not something that I normally do, but I'll kind of see how it looks here. And yeah, it's always just never be afraid of removing stuff, never be afraid of kind of experimenting with something, and if it doesn't work, oh well, you can always get rid of it. You can always just kind of gloss over it. Like here, a lot of the mouth is, I'm just going to make the mouth black, I think, because it'll just save us some work later on if we just make it completely black, so that we don't have to worry about throwing any extra colors that we don't want to have to worry about in here. But yeah, you know what, to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, I guess, actually, you know what, we'll rub out some of this and add in the teeth, I think, at the bottom, add like a touch of the bottom bit of the teeth in there. But yeah, give you a bit of a peek behind the curtain, as I like to say, it seems. I was kind of thinking of this one as a shorter one. So a thing which I normally do, like just a kind of a mental thing that I usually forget, is that whenever I draw in the base sketch, I do still record it, I just cut it out later on because it's just not very interesting to watch, and I can't really show it a lot of the time because of the use of the stock photos, so it's a case of where I do have to be just kind of conscious of it, I guess. You should probably be able to see his tongue. But yeah, it's a case of where I do kind of just forget to do that. But this time I didn't bother recording it because I mean I'm just going to be cutting it out anyways. And since I think of this as being a shorter one, it's a case of where I now the recording time will be shorter too. So it's a case of where I won't be it's just a mental gymnastics type of thing. It just kind of helps out my brain to realize, oh right, yeah, this is a shorter one. So the recording time itself will be shorter, dramatically shorter in theory, but you know what, I'm not kind of into this this drool line. It's not working for me. But yeah, I think the mouth looks okay. You know, instead of moving along, I'll just throw in the stubble now, so I don't forget to add it in later. Thing which I do sometimes, actually, I feel like I should mention, is that I throw in like tiny little lines that jut out from the bottom of the chin, just to show that the stubble is kind of a little thicker. Because whenever someone has thicker stubble, or whenever someone has stubble just in general, you can usually kind of see it poking out from the bottom of their chin a little bit. Not too pronounced usually, but a little bit. And so we add in those little lines just to show that it's kind of poking out a little bit more. That's it. I feel like everyone has their character that they like to draw, their comfort zone, I guess you would say. But I think mine is definitely Wolverine, because Wolverine is just the character that I always draw. For one reason or another, Wolverine is the character I always come back to. That's probably because he's my favorite one. But yeah, I feel like everyone also has their own very particular inspiration for the way that they draw that character. And with Wolverine, I think a lot of people would generally be kind of Jim Lee, obviously, because of the 90s X-Men and everything that he did. But yeah, it's a case of where with me, believe it or not, the particular thing that inspires the way that I draw my Wolverine would be the art from Marvel vs. Capcom 2 done by Bengus. And the art that Bengus did of Wolverine in particular, that I found it's obviously very clearly based off of the way that Jim Lee drew Wolverine and stuff like that, and just that 90s Wolverine art is very clearly what it's based off of. But it's a case of where it's got kind of a bit more. It's got some other quality to it, which I can't really nail down right now while under the confines of doing a video. But it's a case of where it's just got this kind of I think it's maybe that slight manga anime influence that maybe makes it look a bit more. It just gives it maybe something a little different that I quite like. And yeah, I do just quite enjoy the way that he drew Wolverine for the art for that game. And yeah, it was kind of very much what inspires the way that I draw Wolverine to this day. And yeah, it is, I guess, that one thing that everybody has that just inspires the way that they draw their comfort character. For a lot of people it's Spider-Man, that's a lot of people's comfort character. God knows how it could be anyone's comfort character given how intricate the poses and everything are, but that's just some people's thing, that's just how they like to do it. But yeah, some people it's Batman, some people it's Iron Man, Captain America, any of these characters for a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, to each their own. Really is, I guess, what I'm getting at here. But yeah, for me, it's definitely Wolverine. I feel like, to be honest, I've maybe made flood my words. I've maybe made his hands maybe a little too big. I think he's got kind of chunky wrists here, but we'll just kind of roll with it. You know what? We can probably fix that pretty easily, actually. So what was it that I had outlined here? We'll just taper in a bit more like that, and then we'll do the same thing on this side. I think might help. It looks a little better now. Yeah, you see, it's a thing of where you should never be, as I've said a billion times, I think, in this video in particular, you should never really be afraid to change stuff even late. You should never really be afraid to kind of fiddle with stuff and make adjustments where you feel appropriate. If you think you need to adjust something, adjust it, do it. Because, I mean, people won't necessarily notice if you made a mistake, because there are really no major mistakes that you can make. But I'd say there's definitely mistakes you can make on your own personal level, but it's a case of where in the broader spectrum of things people won't necessarily recognize things as a mistake, so it's a case of where you want to make sure you keep things close to how you normally do them, or if you want, go completely off the rails and do whatever you like. But yeah, it is a case of where it's just kind of, I guess, about maintaining some level of consistency. I've stuck closer to this reference than I thought I did, because yeah, the hands in the reference were a little big, I thought, and yeah, it seems like the hands here are maybe a little big too, but oh well, I guess we're saying it's maybe a little bit more stylized, as they say. A bit more of a stylized piece. I mean, funnily enough, I have more recently been, not on camera obviously, but I have more recently been experimenting with more kind of, I guess you'd say, stylized stuff, of where I've been kind of using different kinds of shading and stuff like that to try and kind of emphasize more of a style, and to get across more of just kind of, yeah, more kind of harsher shapes and bigger stuff, and maybe even a little chunkier and stuff like that, to just try and give it, I guess, a bit more personality, a bit more life. Okay, so we've gotten our details done, and that took a lot longer than I thought it would. We're already nearly an hour in, and we've done just the details, but I think the rest of it maybe will be a little quicker. Fingers crossed. This was supposed to be a short one. Oh god, I can never keep track of the time, particularly not whenever, you know, I'm drawing something that I actually like drawing. That's always kind of a time sink, and I still have to draw his hairy arms. Nearly forgot to do that. Alright, I think we're done on the arm here. There's one little thing. You know, I'll wait until after we've done everything on the card before we do anything with the background, but I do have an idea of what to do with the background, and it'll be quick reasonably as well, so that should be a thing, I hope. Yeah, hopefully that'll work. Anyways, we'll do our dot shading, and I'm probably going to be quiet while I do that, I reckon. But yeah, really, to be honest, I think I've covered a lot of what I wanted to cover with this already, which is handy, because I can kind of blaze through the rest of this, and yeah, just kind of get the majority of what I wanted to get done. Alrighty, we're done with the dots. Now it is on to the color, and then we'll be basically done our character. After we've done the color, all we've got to do then is add in the shading on the character, and then we'll be done basically on the character, and then we'll have a few tiny little adjustments. Just can't do words today, can I? I'll have a few tiny adjustments to make on the background, and that'll be it, basically. We're nearly done. We're in the final stretches, I think. Before we get too deep in, it has occurred to me that it might be a wise idea to throw in my underlying background stuff before we go any further. Because what I'm going to be doing for my background, I'm getting this kind of very kind of maybe a lighter yellow, because our Wolverine yellow is going to be maybe a bit oranger than this. It's going to be a bit more kind of rich, but this will kind of help a little bit. What I'm going to do before we get too deep in is I'm going to start getting like a kind of a ready color, and then just doing a little bit of this. Alright, there we've got the kind of the basic idea of our background down. I think you might be able to see what I'm going for here in a little bit. Maybe you might kind of have already probably put two and two together about what I'm going to be doing, but I'm just going to be putting like lines which kind of like kind of the speed lines, except it'll be kind of moving into one point, and that little point will be here. So it'll just kind of make it look maybe a bit more intense, use a bit more of the kind of, I don't know, the mental thing really. But yeah, that's just the kind of the idea of that. But yeah, I do have a trick for how to do that, but we'll get to that later. Yeah. Falling out. You know, so far this is one of the few days in here where it hasn't become a bakery, and boy am I thankful for it, because geez, it's bad in here sometimes. Okay, you know, you may be wondering why I decided to change my browns from being this kind of lighter one to the darker one, and the reason for that is that the lighter one, as you can see here, doesn't stand out a terrible amount from the background, and particularly whenever you're using colors that are kind of on the same tone or palette as your background colors, you can kind of run into this issue like I did there, of where they don't stand out enough, so you have to maybe darken them, lighten them, stuff like that. You have to adjust them in some way or another of where they come across maybe a bit more. And yeah, that is the kind of the danger, I guess, of using background colors that are similar in tone to your primary colors for your character or whatever it is you're drawing. But yeah, hopefully I won't have to do any more adjustments, because we're just gonna do our yellow now, and yeah, then we'll very quickly do our shading, and then we'll be done with Wolverine at least, and then we'll have some few minor things to do with the background. But yeah, you know, I think I've actually enjoyed doing this quite a lot. This drawing has come out better than I expected. But yeah, it is. I'm quite happy with it so far. But we might do a little bit of an experiment with our shading, but I'll show you that whenever I'm actually doing it. I need to make an adjustment to his skin tone. I think it's maybe too light. Well, the thing is, we do actually want it to be kind of vibrant, because our gradient map is probably going to wash it out a little bit, and so we don't want to be too light, because otherwise then it'll get really washed out, which is the last thing we want. last thing we want is weird washed out colors where other colors are kind of it'll look weird if one color is maybe washed out and the other ones aren't. Consistency is really the kind of the goal, so I mean that's the whole point of the gradient map, is you put it on to kind of get some consistency between your colors. But yeah, if it's causing weird little errors like that, then that's the last thing you want. Now, we've got our colors done for the most part. We have still got to do our shading. And now, I did say we were going to do a bit of an experiment. So, our little experiment is that instead of using our... I actually did something like this in the Superman video where I made the dark, kind of the shade on our shading more of like a purpley color. But we're gonna do that, but we're gonna make it a bit more intense. We're gonna make it a little more purple than it was before, because it was still fairly black, but it was just kind of slightly purple. This time we're gonna make it maybe a bit more purple. And again, our gradient map will adjust that, so it'll still kind of keep the contrast of it, but it'll look more in line with our other colors. So we actually do want to create that inconsistency here that I was complaining about before, where with our skin tone. So we'll see how it looks. We can always change it later on, but yeah, and we'll make our lighter color kind of a yellowy color, like a very pale yellow like this, but still vibrant enough. Alrighty, so we've got our shading in, and I think the purple is definitely, or all the colours here are definitely taking to the purple quite well, which is nice. And I wager the yellow is going to come across well enough, so we won't have to do any adjustments. Okay, we've got all our shading done, and I think we're basically finished. We've got a couple of minor things to do, and that'll be it. I need to grab my black again, just to make my life easier in the future, because too many times have I accidentally left it. Excuse me again. Too many times have I left a drawing done and then only realized later on that day that I did not keep my, or that I did not grab my black, so I have to go and make it again, which is just, I don't know, I find it to be a bit of a pain, but yeah. So, time to do our background thing. And so, the thing that we're going to do here is we're going to get, I think a blue color because that'll stand out. Grab a blue, and then we'll use our polygon tool. And this is how we're going. This is how you basically make a perspective grid if you need to. I'm really struggling with the English language today, but if you ever need to make a perspective grid or something like that, this is a kind of an easy way to do that. It just makes life easier. And so all you really have to do is just do this and then whack it out like that. And so, however, this does make the Photoshop file about 30 times larger. But so what we're going to do is because this is too kind of formatted for what we're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're just going to BG line. That's just what we're going to call this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go and do something like that. That's not quite what we're looking for, I think. Yeah, I'll just kind of taper it off a little bit, I think. Something like that. Yeah. It's a little bit rough at the end, but you know, it does the job. But yeah, we'll just kind of add in a few of these, and that's the kind of thing we'll do. Just something simple like that, and that's our background. Okay, I mean they're not exactly consistent in any way really, but I mean they were never really supposed to be. This one I think could use maybe a bit of thickening. These two at the bottom here could maybe use some thickening. We'll very briefly do that. Yeah, I think that's all there that bothered me. So we'll delete that. We don't need the grid itself anymore, and that will make our size, our Photoshop file size, a lot smaller, which is nice. And so we will do two quick things. We'll do our gradient map, and then we'll throw on the texture. I need to sign it. I'll do that now, actually. Actually, no, we need to do... Excuse me. We need to do a light line, which we should do first before we do anything. But actually, you know, I'll sign it first before I go crazy on doing a light line. So I'll just get white here. Make our brush size normal again. And then we'll do our little adjustments, and that'll be it. Okay, now we'll do the gradient map. Okay, so what are we doing? I think I have an idea with the gradient map of what we're going to do. So for our darkest color, we're going to get a bit of a reddy brown color, I think. It was maybe a bit more brown than red. We do want all this to be very vibrant though, so I think yeah, something like that might work for us. And then our lightest color I think we'll want to be a kind of a pale golden yellow, like this. And then say our mid color maybe as like kind of an orange. Like a kind of a salmon-y orange like that. And you know, I think we'll make this darker. So our darks will be a bit fuller, and we'll see what we can do with this. We can adjust it if need be. Oof, overlay is a bit intense. Overlay is a little intense. Soft light I think is what we want, and then bring it down to 60. See what it on and off. It does enough. It does enough to kind of conform our purples there, which is I think what we want. I am forgetting something I was about to say. I thought we were done, but no, I have forgotten. We need to add in the texture, so I'll grab that now. You know, the texture feels like it might be maybe a bit much here. No, we'll do without the texture. I think we can do without the texture this time. We'll leave it there in case I decide on changing that later. But yeah, I think we're good on the texture. I don't think we need that this time. I actually kind of like how it looks without it. So we'll just end it there, I think. We'll fit the screen. But yeah, that was actually a lot of fun, that one. I really enjoyed that. It did come out maybe a little bit more animated than I was expecting. You can see with the kind of the size of his hands. His hands are maybe a little large. But yeah, you know, I actually quite enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you did too. So what did we cover today? We went through action poses. We talked a little bit more. We talked a little bit about dynamic posing as well, and we also learned that I hate English. Apparently, I hate speaking. For some reason today in particular, I've developed a speech impediment. Um, but yeah, I showed a few tips and tricks. We went through and we did our new type of shading, which I'm pretty partial to actually. I quite like the purple. It looks a lot nicer than just the black that I normally use. It's the same basic idea, really. We're doing the same thing. It's just it comes out a little nicer. I think it just looks better generally. Um, but yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think we're good. I had a lot of fun. And as I say, hopefully you did too. If you liked the video, do what you'd normally do. I've established that I cannot convince you otherwise, nor will I try to. And so yeah, bye bye.